The story begins with Lieutenant Aaron Cade, a trained human officer aboard a deep space exploration vessel. A mission that was supposed to be routine goes terribly wrong when the ship encounters a violent gravitational anomaly. In the chaos, emergency evacuation pods are launched. Aaron's pod hurtles through space and crash lands on Thalos 9, an uncharted desert world filled with jagged canyons, bone-dry winds, and a sky the color of rust. She awakens bruised, disoriented, and surrounded by wreckage. The pod systems are mostly fried, her comms are silent, and her oxygen is limited. No response comes from the command channels. She's alive but completely cut off guard as she surveys the planet for shelter and resources. Aaron notices something in the distant sky. Another trail of fire streaking downward. A second escape pod. It crashes far from her location, but the fact that someone else might have survived gives her hope. She takes what supplies she can, rations, a utility knife, a solar flare pack, and begins the trek across the harsh terrain. After nearly a day of travel under the scorching twin suns, she reaches the second crash site. The pod is mangled and half buried in sand. Cautiously, sidearm raised, Aaron approaches only to be met by a tall, imposing alien form emerging from the shadows. The alien is Kareth, a warrior from the Javaria reptilian, crystalline-skinned species often seen as cold and calculating. Though Earth and the Javari Empire share an uneasy peace, cultural tension still runs deep. Aaron instantly recognizes the species. Her training kicks in. Javari warriors are strong, fast, and dangerous. Her finger hovers near the trigger. Kareth seems equally wary. His eyes narrow, his claws flex. Neither speaks the other's language well, and each assumes the other might be a threat. But both of them quickly realize something critical. They are stranded on this planet together, and neither can survive alone. Though initial interaction is tense, survival instincts override old biases. The two keep a careful distance but begin cooperating out of necessity. Kareth shares his pod's working water filter and heat lamp. Aaron offers her first aid kit and backup battery cell. Using a combination of hand signals, gestures, and trial-and-error communication, they agree to establish a temporary shelter. The planet's nights are dangerously cold, and they cannot risk staying exposed. Kareth scouts the area and finds a shallow cave carved into the cliffside. Aaron modifies their gear to seal the entrance, making it a windproof enclosure. In the first few nights, the silence between them is oppressive. Aaron tends to her wounds. Kareth remains still, always watching. When Aaron accidentally drops her ration pack near the fire, Kareth picks it up and hands it back without a word. A small gesture, but it marks the beginning of a fragile understanding. Over the following days, they begin establishing routines. Aaron sets up solar panels to recharge her comms, though they're still silent. Kareth hunts small desert creatures, using a hand-carved spear with deadly precision. Aaron studies his methods, surprised at how efficient he is. He, in turn, begins watching her when she uses her engineering tools, clearly impressed by human ingenuity. Though they don't speak fluently, they start to understand each other's emotions: fear, frustration, hunger, exhaustion. Shared experiences become their new language. One night, as a dust storm rages outside, Aaron notices Kareth visibly shivering. His kind are cold-blooded, and the temperature is plummeting. Without a word, she tosses him her thermal blanket. He looks stunned but accepts it with a slow nod. For the first time, Aaron starts seeing Kareth not as an alien, but as a person. A survivor, like her. She begins recording a voice journal. Using her suit's data log, talking to herself in the darkness. Day 12, still no signal. I think the storm scrambled the beacons. Kareth, yes, That's what he said his name was, is still alive, and we're not enemies. Not really.
I
think we're starting to trust each other. By now, Lieutenant Aaron Cade and Kareth, the Javari alien warrior, have settled into an unspoken rhythm. The cave shelter has become a livable base camp, fortified against dust storms and predators. Though the situation is still grim, the worst of the initial fear has passed. What remains is survival, stripped of politics, fear, and prejudice. Kareth hunts during the early mornings, returning with game small reptilian creatures and cactus-like plants that ooze drinkable fluids. Aaron works on salvaging tech from both crash sites. She's managed to power up a portable heat lamp, a water purifier, and a basic UV distress flare, though it's not strong enough to reach a nearby station through gestures and trial and error. Conversations, Kareth starts speaking broken English, piecing together words he learned from earlier military exchanges with humans. Aaron is surprised by how quickly he learns and touch that he's trying it all. In return, Aaron tries to pronounce Javari words. Her tongue fumbles the alien syllables, but Kareth watches her efforts with something resembling amusement. He corrects her gently when she mispronounces his name or insults his ancestors by accident. They begin to laugh. A shared joke over a misused word, or the time Kareth almost bit into a metallic emergency ration pack thinking it was food. The tension eases. The line between us and them begins to dissolve, but despite these bonding moments, danger remains. One afternoon, while searching for metal fragments to build a long-range transmitter, Aaron slips into a shallow ravine, falling hard on the rocks below. Her leg is slashed open by a jagged shard, and blood quickly soaks her uniform. Disoriented and alone, she drags herself into the shade, her body going numb. She barely has time to activate her emergency flare before blacking out. Kareth finds her hours later. When she regains consciousness, she's back in their cave, her leg carefully wrapped with scavenged fabric and laced with Javari antiseptic paste. Kareth sits silently nearby, watching over her. She murmurs, "You found me." He simply replies, "If you die, I am alone again." Those words land heavy. Aaron realizes that Kareth isn't just helping her out of obligation. He cares. Maybe he doesn't fully understand why. Maybe neither of them do, but there's something beyond survival now. A bond, a fragile thread of loyalty and compassion that neither expected. Over the next several days, as Aaron recovers, Kareth stays close. He reads her pain through her facial expressions, adjusts her bandages, and even helps her drink from a carved canteen when she's too weak to lift it. The roles reverse. Aaron, once the confident leader, is now dependent. And Kareth, once seen as a threat, has become her protector. One night, while she rests beside the fire, Aaron asks him softly, "Why didn't you leave me?" Kareth pauses. Then, in slow English, replies, "Because you are my survival now." The phrase is simple, but for Javari culture, where honor and companionship are tied to life debts, it carries immense meaning. Aaron realizes this is more than kindness. Kareth has bound himself to her in the only way his species knows. How? Through action, not words. They share stories, halting, awkward ones, about their homeworlds. Aaron describes Earth's oceans, blue skies, and coffee. Kareth speaks of crystalline forests that hum during storms, of bonding rituals, and a species that values silence as much as strength. They learn each other's expressions, emotions, even quiet habits. Aaron notices that Kareth hums faintly before sleep. Kareth sees that Aaron always counts her steps before a climb. These small observations, meaningless in isolation, build something sacred between them, familiarity. One afternoon, Kareth presents her with a handmade charm carved from the bones of a Thelosian bird etched with strange runes. Aaron tilts. Her head, unsure. He explains. Shivari give this to those we protect. Then, after a pause, he adds, also, to those we trust. Aaron accepts it. By now, the cave isn't just a shelter, it's a home. Aaron and Kareth have transformed it with resourcefulness and trust. Solar-powered lights dimly glow at night. Insulated bedding lines the interior walls. The harsh winds outside continue to howl, but inside there is warmth, stability, and something deeper neither of them dares name aloud. Their partnership is no longer just about survival. It's become something personal. There's a familiarity to their days and intimate routine forged in crisis. Kareth wakes before the sun's rise to scout for food or materials. Aaron repairs salvage, keeping a record of dates and events, still clinging to the faint hope that someone somewhere might be listening. But even she has begun to wonder, would she want to be rescued now? Despite everything, she feels safe here. Kareth brings her a cluster of edible fruits one evening hard-earned from a high canyon climb. His palm is scratched from the thorns. Aaron cleans the wound, and as she wraps his hand in bandages, their eyes meet. No words are exchanged. But in that glance, there's understanding, and perhaps something more, a quiet invitation neither of them fully understands or resists. That night, under the violet hue of Phalos 9's twin moons, the sky clears completely for the first time in months. They sit together on the edge of a cliff near their shelter, staring upward. The stars stretch across the heavens, cold and distant, but achingly beautiful. Earth is somewhere out there. So is Jivar. But those places feel far away now, more like memories than homes. Aaron speaks softly, almost to herself. Sometimes I wonder if we were meant to end up here. Kareth doesn't respond with words. Instead, he reaches for her hand, slow, careful. She doesn't pull away. She closes her fingers around his, and the silence between them says everything. There, beneath the open stars, a new chapter begins. Not just for them as individuals, but as beings from two worlds who found something impossible in each other, connection. They share a moment, physical, emotional, intimate, not born of desperation, but of genuine closeness. It's tentative, gentle. Two bodies built differently, two hearts learning to beat in rhythm despite language, biology, and history. There's no dramatic confession, no grand declarations. Just warmth, curiosity, the culmination of weeks of trust, care, and quiet emotional evolution. When they return to the cave, they don't separate into opposite corners as they once did. They sleep beside one another, breath sinking in the low light. The following days feel different. Kareth is more attentive, always scanning her expressions, bringing her things without asking. Aaron finds herself watching him too, seeing details she never noticed, the subtle color shifts in his scales, the way he hums to himself when focused. But her body begins to change. It starts small. Morning nausea she blames on tainted water. Then fatigue, cravings, emotional swings she can't explain. She tries to dismiss it all, chalk it up to stress or poor nutrition, but her instincts scream otherwise. She's a trained officer. She knows how to track her health. After running the limited diagnostics left in her medkit, the results are clear if vague. Elevated hormone levels, cellular activity in the uterus, early gestational markers. Aaron freezes, breath stolen by realization. She's pregnant. The news crushes her. With a mix of awe, panic, and disbelief. It shouldn't be biologically possible. Humans and Jivari aren't supposed to be genetically compatible. But something about the environmental conditions of Phalos 9, or maybe just fate, has defied the odds. For a while, she keeps it to herself, trying to process the reality. What will this mean for her, for Kareth, for humanity? Her thoughts spiral into worst-case scenarios. Would the child be healthy? Would it even survive? Would it be seen as a miracle? Or an abomination? Eventually, she can't keep it in. One evening, she sits across from Kareth in the cave, hands shaking as she reaches for his and places it gently against her belly. At first, he looks confused. Then her expression tells him what her broken. Words cannot. His eyes widen. Slowly, he draws back his hand, but not in fear, in reverence. Child? Ours? He asks. Aaron nods, heart pounding. For Lieutenant Aaron Cade, the moment she confirms she's carrying a child, a hybrid, born of a human and a Jevari, it feels like the planet beneath her shifts. Up until now, survival on Phalos 9 had been about adapting to external threats. The elements, the isolation, the uncertainty of rescue. But now, the challenge was internal, her own body, nurturing something impossible, something miraculous. Aaron has always been practical, rational. She's a trained officer, not a dreamer. Yet here she was, impossibly pregnant by an alien she once viewed as a threat. And more than that, she'd come to trust Kareth, perhaps even love him. The early weeks of her pregnancy are a whirlwind of emotions. At first, she tries to hide the symptoms. Morning sickness, fatigue, dizzy spells. But Kareth notices. He's more observant than she gives him credit for. His concern grows as he catches her pausing more often, eating erratically, or clenching her jaw to hide discomfort. Eventually, she can't hide it any longer. She places his hand on her stomach and says the word, child. That one word bridges the gap between them in a way no translator could. Kareth's eyes widen. He leans back, processing what she's just told him. She expects fear, maybe even disgust. Instead, she sees something else entirely. Awe. Kareth kneels before her and places both his hands on her midsection. He whispers something in Jevari she doesn't understand, but his tone is reverent. It is, as far as she can tell, a blessing. This is not curse, he tells her softly, searching for the right words in English. This is life. New way. New, his acceptance catches Aaron off guard. He doesn't question the child's existence or demand answers. He simply embraces it, as he had embraced her weeks before, without judgment, without fear, but outside their cave, the realities of the galaxy loom. They both know what this pregnancy means, politically, scientifically, and existentially. Humans and Jevari aren't just different species. They're cultures that have, at times, clashed violently. Their alliance is recent, fragile. Aaron imagines the headlines if they ever return. Terran officer carries alien child. Hybrid. Abomination or evolutionary leap. Proof of interspecies compatibility raises ethical and military questions. She knows what Earth might do. Interrogate her. Isolate her. Study the child. She's seen what happens to firsts in history. They're celebrated or erased. She discusses it with Kareth one night beside the fire. What if they don't accept us? She asks. Kareth replies, then we do not need them. But she sees the flicker of concern in his eyes too. Neither of them is naive. Returning to their people might not mean safety. It might mean separation, or worse. There's no way of knowing how either government will react to this kind of union one. That breaks biological and cultural boundaries. Still, they prepare. Aaron modifies a med scanner to monitor fetal vitals. The child's physiology is unusual but stable. The readings show two sets of genetic markers, human and Jevari, interwoven in strange, beautiful ways. The child's heart is strong. It's cellular. Structure is resilient, adapting quickly to Phalos 9's harsh environment. It's surviving, she murmurs. No, Kareth says, placing his hand over hers. It is thriving. As the weeks pass, their bond deepens. The pregnancy becomes more visible, and with it, their relationship solidifies into something unbreakable. They speak less through words and more through actions, Kareth cooking softer food for her, Aaron sketching designs for a cradle. These small, tender gestures say what they cannot. We are in this together, but there is a growing tension neither can ignore. Erin's body is strong, but she was never meant to carry. A child on a desert world with limited medical support. She becomes weaker with each passing week. Kareth watches with growing unease, torn between protecting her and fearing he cannot. One night, Erin wakes from a nightmare visions of government agents tearing the child from her arms, of being locked in a sterile lab, of Kareth being dissected for daring to love a human. Kareth is already beside her, calming her. I will not let them take you, he promises. I don't want them to take any of us, she replies. Clutching his hand, the choice hangs in the air. Do they stay hidden, raise the child alone, and risk dying here, or signal for rescue and face whatever comes next? Their answer comes the next morning, when Kareth discovers a buried fragment of a long-range beacon, just enough tech for a proper distress signal if Aaron can patch it together. She hesitates. Her hand hovers over the activation switch. It could mean rescue, she says, or ruin. Kareth simply responds, then let them come. They will see. We are not curse. We are future. It was a desperate gamble, a high-frequency pulse powered by fused Zevari and Terran technology, cobbled together from broken systems, held together by hope and grit. Elara and Karenath had no way of knowing if the signal could break through. The dying world's chaotic atmosphere or bypass the erratic magnetic storms that interfered with most long-range transmissions, but they had no other choice. Time was running out. The ground trembled more frequently now, like the planet itself was groaning in its final hours. Ash clouds gathered in the distance, and the sky dimmed unnaturally. Every morning brought stronger seismic activity. Vents of sulfuric gas erupted from the earth, forcing Karenath to seal off entire corridors of their refuge. Elara, now visibly pregnant, moved with caution. Her energy was limited, but her resolve only grew stronger. With every kick from the child inside her, she felt both fear and fierce protection. They counted days after the beacon's activation, then hours. And then they heard it. A low rumble, different from the ground's quakes, mechanical, rhythmic, familiar. Engines. They scrambled outside, shielding their eyes from the wind. Through the storm-choked sky, a flicker of light broke the gray clouds. Then another. And another. 3 Earth-made drop shuttles descended rapidly, accompanied by 2 Zevari escort craft, sleek and dark, cutting through the ash like razors. The Alliance had responded. The signal had worked. Elara stood frozen, tears in her eyes, clutching Karenath's hand tightly as dust kicked up around them. Rescue teams poured out. Terran medics, armored Marines, and Zevari technicians in environmental suits. Their weapons were drawn at first, confused by the presence of a Zevari male so close to a human woman, but the moment Elara stepped forward, hands raised, shielding Karenath with her body, the Marines hesitated. She's pregnant, one medic said in shock after scanning her. And it's not fully human. Elara nodded, breathless. He saved me. He kept me alive, and he's the father. For a moment, the air was tense. One of the Marines whispered something into his comm, likely awaiting confirmation from higher command. Then slowly the leader lowered his weapon. Get them on board. Karenath, ever reserved, looked at the Terran ships warily, unsure if he would be accepted. Elara didn't wait for permission. She reached for his hand and pulled him forward, past the soldiers, onto the ramp. They came for both of us. She said the ride off-world was a blur. Medics scanned her vitals constantly. Technicians asked questions she didn't answer. She kept her focus on two things. Karanath seated beside her, his alien features unreadable but his hand steady in hers and the steady rhythm of two heartbeats on the monitor screen beside them. One human. One Zevari. One new life. Back aboard the TSV Endeavour, Earth's nearest exploratory cruiser, Alara and Karanath were placed under medical observation. The child was confirmed viable. Genetic specialists were baffled but astonished. The hybrid fetus wasn't just stable, it was thriving. This was a biological impossibility. And yet, it was happening. The news exploded across Earth and Zevari networks. A child born of two species once considered fundamentally incompatible had been conceived naturally, not in a lab, not as an experiment, but through real, genuine connection. Debate followed. Political firestorms, ethical questions, cultural clashes, but none of that mattered to Alara because she'd lived it. She knew what that world had taken from her and what it had given her in return. She and Karanath were offered asylum together. They chose to settle in a Terran Zevari research colony where their child would have access to both cultures. The scientists swarmed, but the couple held firm boundaries. No labs, no observation. Their child would not be raised as a subject, it would be raised as a symbol of unity. Alara often sat by the window, her hand resting on her growing belly, watching the stars outside the station's dome. Karanath would join her quietly, wrapping one arm around her shoulder. "We were supposed to die there," she whispered one night. Karanath replied, voice low. "Instead, we were reborn." When their child was born 3 months later, it bore characteristics of both worlds. Soft, pale skin that shimmered faintly under light, human eyes filled with depth, and delicate Zevari features. It cried like any infant, clung to Alara's warmth, and grasped Karanath's finger with startling strength. The doctors called it a miracle. Elara called it a beginning.